with Jeronimo. And Jeronimo, I'm going to ask a question that hopefully will help us to better understand, where we're headed. Now, I think we can confidently say that building a sense of community is fundamental, for nurturing a long-term passion for sustainability. In your role as regeneration and through your personal journey, how pivotal has community building been? And can you provide any examples of when student communities have enabled change? I understand that this question sometimes can look like we need a whole summit, to talk about it. But, in 4 minutes, 30 seconds, can you, help us, bring this to light?
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you so much for the warm introductions, Kelvin. We all appreciate that. And as you mentioned earlier, a core component of my role right now is trying to empower undergraduate students. And one of the ways that Regeneration, the organization that I work for currently, one of the ways that we're currently doing that is through building a community of students that are passionate about sustainability throughout Canada. And to understand why we're doing this and to showcase the importance of community, I want to share a personal experience. So I recently graduated from a Canadian business program, and throughout my degree, it was pretty evident that sustainability still remained somewhat of a niche area of specialization, which I think makes it really easy for students with an inclination towards learning about environmental and social sciences to feel as if we're part of a minority at our respective institutions. And while students specializing in fields such as finance, accounting, and marketing, which frankly at the moment are not truly discussing and teaching essential environmental and sustainability concepts, are much more popular. And I recall sharing my decision to specialize in sustainability with some of my classmates, and many were unfamiliar with what sustainability truly entailed, like the planetary boundaries framework, the magnitude of the energy transition, the idea of the circular economy. And that experience of feeling like you might be pursuing something alone, that can be incredibly discouraging, especially considering the magnitude of the challenges. And at times, I know it made me question whether pursuing sustainability was the right choice for my career. And unfortunately, I know I'm not the only one that's felt this way, as I've talked to various students that are interested in sustainability who feel like they're part of a minority at their respective schools. So when you ask me why is it essential to build a community, I can think of 3 reasons. The first is to validate. Everyone here knows that sustainability is no longer an afterthought. It's the future, and it's going to show up in every career. Even if our academic institutions are lagging to incorporate sustainability holistically, I think we can say that the corporate and public sector have already made it a deep priority, and this can be seen by these skills that employers are demanding, the legislation that certain governments are integrating, and establishing a community allows students to recognize that the sheer significance of sustainability and to rest assured that they're on a path that is not only valid, but is essential for tomorrow's world. And we need as many individuals present to address the intricate and interconnected set of challenges that we're facing. In addition to validation, I think collaboration is another important factor for community. So across Canada, students are actively organizing sustainability-focused events throughout their personal universities, such as speaker panels, case competitions, and debates. But we found that in the past, their efforts often exist in isolation. So by establishing a formalized community, we can easily facilitate collaborations and amplify our impact. So as an example of this, back in 2020, Regeneration's community led the Our Future, Our Business Manifesto campaign. And to this day, I think we can say that that is one of the most significant youth-led movements that changed the way that business is done and taught throughout Canada. Throughout the initiative, we collaborated with 65 student-led organizations to co-create 20 statements of how we envision the future of our economy looking like. Those statements got the support from 1,500 students and alumni, 100 civil society organizations, and 130 high-level executives, who all recognize the need for education to change. Additionally, our community is currently igniting various collaborations amongst distinct student clubs that are co-hosting speaker panels that aim to educate students about careers within the clean economy. And as I said earlier, by collaborating together, we're amplifying our impact on these initiatives. And last reason, I said 3 reasons. The last one I think is communities instill hope. When we foster a community that is filled with passionate students that believe in sustainability, I believe we're effectively defeating that overwhelming feeling of despair that sometimes can arise when we realize the magnitude of these challenges. And it does that because we see that there are many other motivated and bright individuals that are also concerned about the future, and we realize that we can learn from each other, and ultimately we can create solutions to the challenges that are lying ahead. So I just want to take a brief moment to also congratulate all the people who are striving to create community, such as oikos, PGS, and Rethink Economics, and all the individuals that actively participate in those communities, like everybody here today, because your efforts make us realize that we're not alone and that we can amplify our impact, and that together we could truly make a difference.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm really, like this, for me, this is a reflective moment because you've said three important things that many times when I think about, I also ask myself, do I find this in, in student communities, locally where I am, like the whole thing of validation, collaboration, and instilling hope. So question really for the audience and for students and for youths out there and for those working with communities. Are your communities actually instilling hope? Are your communities, serving as a source of validation? Are you thinking concretely about collaboration? Now, again, thank you very much. And I think this is sort of an opportunity to, just ask Darija this question, and with the work that you do at oikos, and I know that you obviously hear a lot of student voices, so a lot of student voices also. And but then what are they saying, really? What can you hear? What can you hear from what they are saying? What frameworks do you currently explore, in your work to empower them? What would you like to see if we were to have a transformed educational system?
Thank you so much, Kelvin. And hello, everybody. Thank you for these questions. Yes, I'm just only one voice from the oikos community, and there are tons of voices around the world, not just within the community, but as Jeronimo said, around the world within student initiatives and other organizations and NGOs. They're working towards transforming our education. Something that touched me and stuck with me a few weeks ago when I was attending a New Economies conference in Rotterdam, organized by Partners for New Economy, was a statement that said economics and management education should prepare students and researchers to construct and co-create just and regenerative economic systems, emphasizing systems, not a system, but systems for the planet and for human race as a whole. So my question is why there are two shoulds and also systems, or an S, and how the education is currently serving us when it comes to the real world challenges. Since we are dealing, or not just dealing, but learning about things that are not serving us, I'm curious, how can we leverage the diversity that we really do desperately need when it comes to concept structures, solutions, to acknowledge that this diversity is a challenge, but is a solution as well. So what Jeronimo already mentioned, there is a growing momentum that the concepts, alternative concepts, are in places and spaces, are growing traction, but they are not growing credibility currently. They are not accepted yet at each and every university. So what we try to do also at oikos is tap into transformative processes in both ways. So two ways when it comes to a theory of change. And it's something that is needed on top-down institutional support and bottom-up co-creation as well in a participatory manner. So what I was also a little bit inspired by what our dear colleague from Prime Secretariat, Paolo, actually mentioned this morning, in this kind of two-way road of theory of change when it comes to transforming education. I really want to acknowledge the moment where now students are not just stepping in and finally getting this momentum to feel seen and heard, but also already stepping into co-creative and collaborative processes with universities. And what does that mean? Something that we have been putting into the center is questions like, who is actually at the center of learning when it comes to education? What does learner-driven mindset really mean? And how can we use education or leverage education as a collective learning space? This is a quick tease for a Copernican revolution that is actually going to happen for the Oikos Academy and Higher Education Summit in November, that is co-created by Oikos and Copernicus Alliance. This is one of our, let's call it, flagship project in Transforming Education Initiative, where we convened with professors and deans, co-presidenting Copernicus Alliance, and gathered around a fact that we are all learners in the educational systems, both students, professors, researchers, deans, faculty members, different stakeholders. So how can we actually embrace this mindset? And how can we empower the students to bring this also mindset to the professors, teachers, faculty members, and different stakeholders in the landscape? So how do we bring transformational change and transformation into education? At Oikos, we believe that convening the youth around the sustainability field, so being the conveners, the change drivers, and the storytellers, is a way to go, and something that we are empowering also other students and youth around the world. And we are gathering around the simple question of how we want to, as a community, learn, lead, and live towards a more sustainable future. We have different initiatives that are focusing on learning and transformational education, on leading, the empowerment, and living. So how can we actually live the change that we are promoting, walking the talk? I could dive a little bit deeper in all of these initiatives, and I know for most of the people here, some of those are already familiar because we are trying to collaborate on all of them with different stakeholders and partners in the landscape. But what I do want to offer as a thought for everybody, as a kind of a final line of my introduction, is one very interesting quote that inspired me a lot, which was mentioned by Rob Hopkins. And he shared, or rather tackled our minds with the thought of the future must enter in you long time before it happens. So how can we be the courageous change that we want to see in the world and embody the future that we all wish to see?
Really, really deep thoughts there. How can the future enter our mind long time before it happens? Okay. Thank you very much, Darija. Thank you. I think you said some, rather interesting things, and that question of who is at the center of learning, who is at the center of learning, who are we developing these curriculums for? The content, who is it for really? And finding ourselves in a situation where students go through programs in the university and come out to realize that what they have learned doesn't really tackle real world challenges, then there really is a problem. So thank you very much, Darija, for that. And just before we move on to the next panelist, I would like to remind you that I think you can actually drop questions. I'm not sure, but I think you should have the option on your end as attendees to be able to ask questions, because we'll get to that point where we'll take questions from the audience. So please feel free to drop questions that you might have in mind. And like we've been hearing some deep thoughts, right? So I can imagine that it's provoking some things. So please feel free to share your questions. So I'm going to move really fast to Nikolay, and I really would like to, hear what you have to say, because I know that you've had experiences at, PRME and PIR, and you've really learned a lot, particularly with the reports that, that was just published by PIR this year, because I was also looking through the website and I saw that the report for 2023 is out. So, but I would like to safely assume that, it's undisputed that the perspective of students is required to transform education. Now, from your experience and work at the PRME and PIR, how much of these perspectives really matter? Is there a limit to the dynamism of these perspectives? How can these perspectives be leveraged?
Thank you, Kelvin, and also thank you to the dear panelists, Jeronimo and Darija. Very nice to see you here on this occasion, as well as Nthabi, who I just recently met. So yeah, thanks for having me here. I do have a good amount of experience with both Prime and the positive impact rating. I also have a good deal of experience with oikos previously, out of Copenhagen as president of oikos Copenhagen chapter. So very familiar with the work there, and also oikos is a great example of building community and speaking towards what Jeronimo was saying. And Kelvin, your questions also speak towards what Darija was looking at there. How can we transform education? Indeed, the student perspective, in my opinion, is extremely important when it comes to transformation at business schools and when it comes to internal change. And this is what I think a lot of schools see as value when they participate in the positive impact rating, because the positive impact rating for business schools is measuring the student perception. And when you look at the student perception, let's say you're the school's administration and you want to make internal change, when you have a benchmarking tool such as the peer report, you can go to faculty, you can go to top management, and you can say clearly or show clearly what students are perceiving as receiving from your educational efforts, and you can clearly, let's say, nudge faculty to change certain things, or say students want to see new ways of teaching or new curriculum introduced to their programs. I've had conversations with deans and with top management at schools who have shared that once they have this student perspective or the perception of students, they have it much more productive conversation with faculty when it comes to change. And change is what is demanded by many students. The past edition of the positive impact rating, the 2023 edition, we had 71 schools participating, of which 69 made it to the report. And we had a record response rate of over 12,800 students responding to the survey, and an average of 180 student responses per school. So the findings that are coming out of that, and specifically to two of the open questions at the end of the survey, which are asking what students should stop doing and what schools should stop doing and what schools should start doing. We've got a 6,000 strong voices of students saying that they really want to see their schools stop downplaying diversity and fairness, that speak also towards Darija's comment there, or stop greenwashing and stop unethical partnerships with businesses or bad actors in their community, and they should really address some of the organizational practices and stop waste on campus, energy, plastic, paper, etc. So that's something that's coming strongly from what schools should stop doing. But what is most interesting for the topic of this panel is that 6,000 students are strongly saying that they want to see their schools more integrating more sustainability into their curriculum and make it mandatory. And then students want to see their schools address relevant practical problems. As Darija was saying, what are we teaching for the real world problems? And what are the solutions that we can build with new skill sets that students are expecting to be taught at schools? We have a wave of new students coming, or the Greta Thunbergs of the world in the thousands coming to higher education with such demands, and they really want to see changes not only in the curriculum, but changes in the way things are being taught or the way things are being learned. We have a huge development of new disruptive technologies. We have a very, I would say, limited attention span of new coming students. And so all their ways of teaching, all the ways of more conventional ways of pedagogy might be becoming obsolete. So then there is also the need of changing the way learning and teaching is being managed, and changing learning methods, and maybe engaging more students in the process. There are interesting examples from prime schools of enabling students to be the providers of the content and the teachers in the classroom, whereas the professors are becoming the mentors. And so that's an interesting approach there. The more innovative teaching schools can provide, and more adapted to the current trends and realities of new coming students, the better. So that's another angle to look at when it comes to teaching and when it comes to curriculum change. But in essence, there is need to change. The change is very incremental from my experiences in business schools. To your question, Kelvin, to what degree the student perspective is being perceived and what's the dynamic there, I think both faculty and school administration care deeply about the student perspective. Students are one of the few key stakeholders that schools care about. In many cases, especially in private schools, students are the main client of the school, let's say. So their demand is really, really key. And through platforms such as the Positive Impact Rating, through platforms such as the Prime Global Students and the summit that we're currently participating in, through engagements in organizations such as Oikos and such as Regeneration, I think there is a very strong space for conscious students and students that really want to make a difference in the world. There is a space for them to actively engage and to really bring that strong student voice to the attention of school administration and of a faculty. And that's where we're taking small but impactful steps towards transformation at business and management education.
Wow.
And I'll stop here because I know that we're short on time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, really, I wanted to just listen, continuously, and because Nikolay is saying that there is need for change, and he's saying this because not just because he feels, not because he thinks, but because you've heard the data, right? You've heard him say that, feedback from schools, from students, and if we are seeing the data and we are not interpreting the data enough to, tell us and bring to our consciousness that there is need for change, then maybe there is a problem, but I think we need to pay attention to the story behind the data. So students are speaking, they are speaking louder and louder, and a new generation of students are coming on board, and they will keep speaking and they want to take action, right? So, so I hear that, and something quite interesting is that on this panel, we have someone who is, on the entrepreneurship side, someone who is building a solution, to help students and young professionals to discover jobs in the green sector. And I think already she will be able to tell us, concretely from her experience, if students are prepared, for the jobs that's that they are looking for. So question for you, Nthab, is I hear a lot of instructional design and pedagogy when it comes to education. It's not new. When we talk about education, we hear pedagogy, andragogy, and all. And I almost would like to think that design thinking is something for the entrepreneurship world only. And I mean, I suspect I'm wrong. So please tell me I'm wrong. But what is the role of design thinking in education reform through curriculum change?
Thank you for that question, Kelvin. And this is a misconception that many people have, that design thinking is unique to just entrepreneurship. And as much as it is closely associated with entrepreneurship and product development, design thinking is slowly starting to find its feet in educational reform as well. It's gaining quite a lot of traction in that regard. Now, for people or students in the audience who might not know what design thinking is, I mean, I myself was only introduced to it a few years ago. Design thinking is a human-centered problem-solving approach to solving complex problems. Now, from hearing all of you speak, I mean, I can just imagine how complex this educational system really is, right? So it makes design thinking quite unique to the educational system. Now, the 5 steps in design thinking, you start with understanding your end user, which in this case I perceive to be the student themselves, the client, as Nikolay put it. And then the second step is to articulate the problem. The third step is to ideate solutions. And the fourth step speaks to prototyping some of these solutions that you've ideated. And then it ends off with testing and getting feedback on what to improve, what's working and what's not working. Now, these 5 steps are universal problem-solving steps, right? And anyone can interpret these steps and actively follow them. So again, it's not just unique to just entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs in the space. Anyone can follow these steps and use them. What I particularly like about design thinking is that it places a great deal of emphasis on empathy. And empathy in the sense of understanding the students' aspirations, their needs, their desires. I mean, you asked me about students' perception to the jobs in the green economy, and many of them don't know of these jobs, right? So through empathy, you're able to uncover most of these things and really get to the underlying issues of what students face as challenges in the educational system. Empathy, however, goes a step further. It's not just about understanding the needs and the desires of users or students in this case, but it actually speaks to what you do with that understanding to effect change. So there's an element of agency that also comes as a byproduct of empathy, and student leadership as well comes into the mix here. And my particular journey and my story with this is I actually used empathy to start my business. That is what spurred me into action, realizing that I am not the only one facing this issue, but there's so many youth like me that are facing similar issues. So many times youth are often the most affected by the educational system, but we are the least consulted. And design thinking really provided me with the tools to take things into my own hands, and you as well as a student looking to reform education. You might be sitting there wondering, okay, so how do I do this? How do I go about it, right? The first step, start with empathy to really understand the critical challenges and gaps in education. You can always use surveys, interviews, focus groups to really document the groundwork of the challenges that we're facing. The second step would then be for you to articulate the problem. And here is where things get a bit, challenging, because you really need to diagnose the problem on a below the surface level, if I could call it that. And you need to ask yourself, okay, so the educational system is outdated, but why? You might find that there's not enough money to print new textbooks. Okay, but why is that the case? Why don't we move online? Why don't we digitize the curriculum? So in asking yourself why, you're able to get to the root cause of the problem, right? Which puts you in a good position when you progress to the third step. which is to ideate solutions. And this is where we open up the floor to other educational stakeholders, such as the school alumni, parents, and teachers as well, just to really get different perspectives as to how do we solve this problem. And once you get those different perspectives, you're in a position to then create, to move on to the prototype stage, which then could speak to creating a prototype curriculum, which could feature lesson plans, it could feature projects that you want to see in the curriculum. It could also feature different methods of evaluation. The ideal next step, and this is the last step, would be for the school to then implement your prototype curriculum on a trial basis. And we all know that this won't be an easy task. So knock on the door, but if no one opens the door, then kick the door down. And yeah, that's just how I feel. And this is how you start the conversation when the conversation is not coming to you. Now, will it be easy? 100% not. Will you give up? No, you won't. And the reason that you won't give up is because there's a younger generation that's looking to us to rewrite the rules and shatter these glass ceilings. And so, yeah, in closing, use empathy, couple that with creativity and this unyielding will that youth are terrifyingly known for, right? And redesign the system so that we're not just beneficiaries of an outdated system, but that we're actively co-creating and becoming architects in its design. And a lot of people like to tell us that we are the leaders of tomorrow, and as much as that's true, we are really the change makers of today, of now. So let's get to work and let's make some noise.
Thank you very much, Ntab. You really have spoken like a true entrepreneur. Like the whole call to action and, like looking at things from an entrepreneur perspective. And I really appreciate that. And you said, very striking things. And one of it is also what, Nikolay has also reemphasized, which is, the empathy, which is what do the students really need? The students are practically the clients here. So if we're running a company and we're going to sell a product, then the question is we need to know if the users or if the customer is going to buy, but the way it looks now, it looks like, it doesn't matter, right? So whatever curriculum we think is best, we push it out. And then a very striking question that you have also mentioned is, why is the curriculum, outdated? Why is it not? Why is there no handshake? That why question. Thank you very much. Thank you. And we are really short on time, but it looks like I'm seeing a lot of amazing questions here. I'm going to just give opportunity for anyone to take a stab at this before we give our our final thoughts. Now, someone is asking here, does changing the curriculum imply the use of more modern laboratories in all branches of knowledge? Is that what it means? I don't know. Anybody can take a stab at that. Who wants to do that in 30 seconds? Okay, so Darija, do you want to take a stab at that?
I can briefly do that.
Yes,
this is exactly what we are trying to do with our leadership program, to refer or to acknowledge the fact that the extracurricular, as we are perceiving it right now, that we are tending within the community with these initiatives. LEAP is a program about conscious and responsible leadership, which is really used as a change lab for personal development and discovering and building competencies towards leadership, towards conscious and responsible leadership. And it's very much reflecting a word of modern laboratories. And this is exactly what we are trying to bring into the education. So it's also referring very much to what Nthambi was sharing about empathy, discovering also the framework that we have been using and putting into the center of it is IDG's Inner Development Goals, which are very much aligning or were co-created as a way to get to the SDGs that we are talking about, because SDGs are the goals, and there is a need for a process of how we get there. So some of these initiatives that are already boiling up within the cauldron of student initiatives are very much seeking credibility and space in the curriculum change and also in the educational framework. So I would say a big yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Darija. And now, because of time, I'm really sorry. Because of time, I would give just say 30 seconds to give your final thoughts. As I said at the beginning, we want to have deep conversations. Unfortunately, it's not deep enough, but we also want to ensure that people, take away something concrete, right? And I just want to give us 30 seconds each. What do you want students, participants, professors, organizations to take away from this conversation, really? So let's start with Nikolay.
There. Thank you, Kelvin, and thank you, everyone. Well, I want to circle back to what Tima Bansal, the incoming chair of Prime, and also the interim, also John Good, mentioning in the aftermath of the UN General Assembly Week in New York just a couple of weeks ago, that we are still, not so far in delivering the Sustainable Development Goals, and that.
Okay, so so while we wait for Nikolay is back. Yes, you're back.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Did I disappear for?
Yes, you did, but it's good you're back.
All right, cutting in short there, yeah, we're quite behind. So what I convey, a message I want to convey is that proactive education is really achievable if raise their voice and louder and the more there is and a number of faculties resistant to change actually make that leap of faith and change curriculum approach in order to the mindsets and in future to as a community, as a global community.
Great. Thank you, Nikolay. I hear what you have said, and something that I can take away from that is that we need to make a leap of faith, and I think it's something very essential. So, Nthabiseng, do you want to go next? 30 seconds, your final thoughts.
Yes, I'll definitely keep this short. Youth are often perceived to be inexperienced, and what do we actually really know? And the truth is, we might not know that much, but that is our superpower, that we have this blank canvas to create from or to co-create from. And I think that's where a lot of creativity also stems from. It's really needed in the educational system. So never stop challenging the status quo and really make some noise and make your voices be heard. That would be my closing remarks. Thank you for the opportunity, Kelvin.
Thank you very much. Keep getting your voices heard. Darija?
I have one message, very short message, and one question. So the message is, or the question, let's put two questions. How can we start running more towards hope and not running away from fear? And additionally, how can we do it together? So how can we do it as a human race?
Wow, that's it. Okay, very well. So Jeronimo, your final
amazing.
thoughts.
Thank you so much, Darija. That was a beautiful message. I just want to say, if you feel like your school is behind on implementing sustainability, you are truly not alone. Schools just really are not built to change quickly, and most haven't changed enough. But you yourself as a student, you're a critical stakeholder in the education system, and your engagement can be powerful. You can advocate for business schools to take decisive and proactive steps to address changing employer expectations and pressing world challenges. And I've seen some pretty amazing examples of curriculum change where students get together to integrate, mandatory courses on sustainability within the realm of finance and within the general Common Core. So just want to leave you all with that. Thank you so much for everybody's presence today.
Thank you, thank you. I would like to say a final thank you to Nthabiseng, to Darija, to Nikolay, to Jeronimo, and to the audience and to the planning committee, the team behind all this. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you again. So just quick announcement, you can join the next session by exiting this and go back to the lobby and you click join for the next session. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you also, Kelvin, for holding the space for this conversation.
Thanks. You've been a great moderator, Kelvin. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one. Jeronimo, check your inbox when you get the chance.
Okay, sounds great. I will totally do that.
We would love to have either you or Maxime on the HES, the Higher Education Summit, coming in November. I know your schedules are crazy, but
no, we would love to participate. I mean, I just haven't gotten the chance to get back to that email, but
check it out.
Sounds good, Darija. It was great to see you today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Hi everyone, just remember to join the next session. Please go back to the lobby page and click from there. Bye bye.